You know, Bob Presley's life was about service. Service to his family, service to his community, and service to his country. My colleague spoke eloquently about Senator Presley's service in World War II, member of the greatest generation. He served with General Mark Clark in that Fifth Army in Italy, where he received that Bronze Star for heroism. And frankly, that was some of the toughest fighting, those of you who are historians know, some of the toughest fighting in World War II in Italy with that army. But you wouldn't have known it by talking to Senator Bob Presley. I never did in all the years that I knew him. He was a man of distinct grace and humility, a man of courage, and a man of decency. You know, during his time in the Senate, he actually worked across the aisle to get stuff done. Sort of a novel concept these days. You may not know this, but in 1982, he was on the ticket as both the Democratic and the Republican nominee and candidate for the California State Senate. And after searching our state archives, our current Secretary of State has confirmed that he's the only politician in modern history to have done so. Needless to say, Senator Bob Presley won that race. In addition to his work in public safety, which my colleague has highlighted in some detail, you should also know that Bob Presley fought for survivors of domestic violence and abuse, establishing shelters and resources around the state to help women and children impacted by those heinous crimes. And together with former Assemblyman, then later Congressman Jerry Lewis, he was instrumental in the development of the modern-day South Coast Air Quality Management District, leading to clean air in inland Southern California, the clean air that we mostly enjoy today. His contributions to our state and his contributions to our nation will be felt for generations, from making our neighborhoods safer to the air we breathe cleaner, to our politics more compassionate and dignified. In my view, he was one of the finest public servants California will probably ever see. Now, I first met Bob Presley in 1979, 40 years ago. I was a young Air Force captain in those days working for a Lieutenant Colonel boss at March Air Force Base. And we were helping Senator Presley with the bill to assist military members who were summoned to jury service. And I actually drafted part of that bill. So when it came time for the bill to move through the California State Senate and the Senate Judiciary Committee, Bob Presley invited, obviously my boss, but also invited me to come to the California State Senate to testify as that young captain. You know, I begged off. Frankly, the thought of coming to the California State Senate intimidated me. Funny how things work out. Over the years, he became a mentor to me. We served on community boards and advocacy groups together, and he was one of, frankly, 2 or 3 people who convinced me to run for the California State Senate in 2012 following redistricting. And he continued to cheer, as my colleague from Riverside County would do. I met him for lunch on several occasions after coming up here, and he continued to cheer me on after that, to encourage me to talk about working across the aisle, even in this political environment, and how beneficial it was both to his career and to the residents of Riverside County and the residents of the state of California. But perhaps most importantly, Senator Bob Presley gave my wife Cindy her first job at age 17 in his California State Senate district office in Riverside, California, and continued to mentor her and guide her in her career for as long as he lived. I will tell you this, I've said this before, Bob Presley was a true gentleman in a world that unfortunately appears to have no further use for gentlemen. He will be missed.